1:47 a.m., my phone vibrated on the nightstand. Not a loud ring. Not urgent. Just enough to slice through sleep. I grabbed it instinctively. The name on the screen made my chest tighten. But more on that later. My name is Daniel Brooks. I was 45 at the time. Lauren and I had been married for 18 years. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it was steady. No huge fights. No shocking scandals. Just a life we'd built, routines we'd learned, and a trust that felt solid. Or at least I thought it did. Lauren left on a Thursday morning. A short trip to Savannah with friends. Emily was going too, the loud, funny one who hugged everyone a little too hard and always called people babe. I didn't question it. Trips like this were normal for us. She packed quickly, kissed me on the cheek, waved and said she'd be back Sunday night. I told myself everything was fine. Normal. Ordinary. That evening, I made dinner, flicked through a few TV channels, answered some work emails. By midnight, I was already in bed, half asleep, letting the quiet settle around me. Then, at 1:47 a.m., my phone vibrated, and Emily's name appeared on the screen. I froze. Wives' friends don't call their husbands in the middle of the night. Not unless something is very, very wrong. I answered, voice low. Hello. Silence. Then, uneven, shallow breathing. I'm sorry, Emily said, voice trembling. I shouldn't be calling you. That one sentence hit me differently. Emergencies don't start with apologies. This was something else. Is Lauren okay? I asked. Pause. Too long. My stomach started twisting. She's fine, Emily said finally. She's asleep. I blinked, confused. Then, why are you calling me? I don't know how to say this without making it sound worse than it is, she said, each word weighed down careful. My heart started thumping. Not panic exactly, but a kind of alertness I hadn't felt in years. Something in that voice told me this call wasn't casual. Emily started talking slowly. A bar by the water. Lauren stepping outside several times to take phone calls. A distracted smile. A laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. No names. No accusations. Nothing I could hold on to. I'm probably overthinking it, Emily said, almost rushing the words out. I just felt weird about it. I thought if it were my husband I'd want to know. Want to know what? She never said. The call ended too quickly, leaving me sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, staring at the ceiling. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel betrayal. I felt unmoored. Like someone had nudged the floor out from under me without leaving a mark. I told myself she was drunk. Or anxious. Or imagining things. Lauren had never given me a reason not to trust her. I lay back down trying to sleep, but Emily's words circled in my head. Not what she said, but how she said it. The careful pauses. The hesitation. I told myself I'd laugh about it in the morning. That this was nothing. But even then, deep down, I knew something had shifted. Something small, almost invisible, but once it moves, you don't unsee it. And that night, as the shadows of the ceiling fan flickered across the walls, I realized. The world I thought I knew had tilted just enough that I might never sit still in it the same way again. The morning after Emily's call, I woke up tired, even though I hadn't done anything the day before. That kind of tired doesn't come from work. It comes from thinking too much while pretending you're asleep. I made coffee and checked my phone. No missed calls. No new messages from Lauren. That should have been normal. Instead, it felt noticeable. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Lauren was on a trip. She didn't need to text me every hour. Still, I checked the time difference. I checked it twice. I spent the morning doing small things. Laundry. Dishes. A grocery run I didn't actually need. Anything that kept my hands busy. My mind kept trying to finish a sentence Emily had never said. I kept asking myself what her motivation was. She and Lauren weren't that close. They got along, but they didn't confide in each other much. So why call me? One answer made sense. She saw something and panicked. Another answer made me uncomfortable. She wanted to involve me for a reason that had nothing to do with concern. I didn't like either option. Around noon, Lauren texted me. Hey, just woke up. Late night. Everything okay at home? I stared at the screen longer than I should have. I typed all good, deleted it, then typed it again and sent it. Simple. Neutral. Safe. That was the word I kept choosing that day. Safe. I didn't ask about her night. I didn't mention Emily. I didn't want to sound suspicious over nothing. At the same time, I didn't want to sound too relaxed either. Like I didn't care. That's how it starts. You're not lying yet. You're just managing tone. Later that afternoon, I replayed the call again. I paid attention to the pauses this time. Emily hadn't sounded drunk. She hadn't slurred her words. She had sounded controlled. That bothered me. Drunk people overshare. Controlled people choose what to leave out. I reminded myself that Lauren had always been private. She didn't like taking calls in front of people. That had been true for years. I built a story that made everything fit. Work stress. A client issue. Something she didn't want to bring on vacation. The story felt logical. That was the problem. Logical stories are easy to believe when you want them to be true. That night, Lauren called me. Her voice sounded relaxed. Normal. She talked about the hotel. About dinner. About how Emily had complained about the bartender being rude. Emily's name landed in the conversation without tension. I listened carefully. Too carefully. Lauren didn't sound nervous. She didn't hesitate. When the call ended, I felt embarrassed. Embarrassed that I had spent the whole day preparing for a conversation that never happened. I told myself this was what trust looked like. You feel a moment of doubt, then you let it go. Still, before bed, I checked Emily's social media. I hadn't done that in years. There were photos from the trip. Group shots. Smiles. Drinks on the table. Lauren looked happy. I told myself I was done thinking about it. But later, lying in the dark, another thought came in. Emily hadn't said Lauren did anything wrong. She had said Lauren asked her to cover for her. Cover for what? That detail didn't fit my logical story. I tried to remove it, but it stayed. I realized something uncomfortable then. Waiting felt passive. Like I was hoping the truth would introduce itself. And deep down, I knew that wasn't a strategy. It was avoidance. I wasn't ready to confront anything yet. But I was no longer fully at rest. Something had started moving. Emily called me again on Sunday afternoon. That alone told me this wasn't just a drunk impulse from the first night. People don't repeat mistakes they regret. I was in my car, parked outside a hardware store, when I saw her name on the screen. For a second, I thought about letting it go to voicemail. Then I answered. Hi, I said. She didn't waste time. I need to be clear about something, Emily said. Because I don't feel great about how I left things. Her voice was steady. Not emotional. Almost rehearsed. I stayed quiet. When I called you the other night, she continued, I wasn't trying to suggest Lauren was cheating. That sentence hit harder than if she had said the opposite. I hadn't accused Lauren of cheating out loud. Not to Emily. Not even to myself. So what were you trying to say? I asked. Emily hesitated, then spoke slower. Lauren asked me to cover for her, she said. Not just that night. For a few things. For what? I asked. I don't know exactly, she said. She didn't tell me everything. She just said she needed space and didn't want to deal with questions. That explanation didn't land cleanly. Lauren hated unfinished conversations. She didn't avoid questions. She over-explained. So you didn't see anything, I said. You just felt uncomfortable. Yes, Emily said. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. That was the moment the soft version of the story broke. Not shattered. Cracked. Emily wasn't calling to protect me. She was calling to offload something. I asked her why she didn't talk to Lauren directly. She paused. Because she told me not to, Emily said. After we hung up, I sat in the car longer than I needed to. I replayed the conversation, but this time I paid attention to what Emily avoided. She never said Lauren lied. She never said Lauren cheated. She said Lauren was managing information. That was new. When I got home, Lauren's suitcase was by the door. She arrived an hour later. She hugged me, kissed my cheek, asked if I had eaten. Everything looked normal. Too normal. At dinner, I almost asked her about Savannah. About the calls. About Emily. Instead, I asked how her trip was. Relaxing, she said. I needed the break. Her answer was honest. That was the problem. It didn't contradict anything Emily had said. It just didn't complete it. That night, I lay awake again. I realized something uncomfortable. I was waiting for a moment that would justify action. A message. A slip. Something obvious. But nothing obvious was coming. And waiting wasn't neutral anymore. It felt like I was choosing not to see. The next morning, I noticed small things. Lauren taking her phone into the bathroom. Lauren stepping outside to answer a call. Nothing dramatic. Nothing new if I was being fair. But now I was watching. That's when I understood what had changed. It wasn't trust breaking. It was certainty dissolving. You can live with trust. You can live with doubt. What you can't live with is pretending doubt doesn't exist. By Tuesday, I knew I had two options. I could confront Lauren without proof and risk being wrong. Or I could keep observing and become someone I didn't recognize. Neither felt good. That's when the thought came in, clear and unwelcome. If the truth didn't come on its own, I would eventually have to go get it. And once you admit that to yourself, you're already moving forward. Even if you pretend you're not. By the middle of the week, my days started to feel different. Not louder. Not dramatic. Just tighter. I was doing the same things as before. Going to work. Coming home. Eating dinner with Lauren. But now I was present in a way I hadn't been. Not connected. Alert. Lauren didn't notice at first. Or maybe she did and chose not to say anything. Either way, our conversation stayed normal. Too normal. How was your day? Long. Same. We talked about groceries. About a neighbor who was renovating his kitchen. About a show we were half watching together. Nothing was wrong on the surface. That's what made it harder. Because if something was wrong, it was happening underneath all of it. On Thursday morning, Lauren was in the shower when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't checking her phone. I just saw the screen light up. One line of text. Did you tell him yet? No name. No emoji. No explanation. I froze. Not because of what it said, but because of how direct it was. I didn't touch the phone. That matters. People think restraint means trust. Sometimes it just means fear of what you'll confirm. The screen went dark. The water kept running in the bathroom. I stood there longer than I should have. When Lauren came out, wrapped in a towel, she smiled like nothing had happened. "Morning," she said. I said it back. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. All day that message stayed with me. "Did you tell him yet?" "Tell me what? About Savannah? About the calls? About something that had nothing to do with either?" The worst part was how many explanations fit. That's when I realized I was already deep into this. Because my brain was now doing the work of protecting the relationship for both of us. That evening, I ran into Emily's name again. Not in a call. Not in a text. Lauren mentioned her casually. "Emily said she's thinking about changing jobs," Lauren said while cutting vegetables. "She's stressed." I watched her face carefully. Nothing. No hesitation. No sign that Emily had become a problem. That made me uneasy. If Emily had crossed the line by calling me, Lauren should have been upset. Or at least cautious. Instead, she sounded neutral. Later that night, I asked Lauren a question that felt harmless. "Did you have a good talk with Emily after the trip?" I asked. She nodded. "Yeah. Why?" "No reason," I said. "Just curious." She looked at me for a second longer than usual. Then she smiled. "She worries too much," Lauren said. "Always has." That answer settled something for me. Not because it was wrong, but because it was incomplete. Emily worried too much. But Lauren didn't usually dismiss people that way. That night I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about how easily I had slipped into observation mode. How quickly I had stopped being a participant and started being a witness. That scared me. I didn't want to become the kind of man who watched his own life like evidence. On Friday I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. I didn't. It was Emily. "I shouldn't be calling you again," she said immediately. "That didn't stop you last time," I said. She didn't laugh. "I need to ask you something," she said. "And you don't have to answer." I waited. "Has Lauren said anything to you?" Emily asked. "About Savannah. Or about me?" "No," I said. "Why?" Emily exhaled. "Okay," she said. "Then I'll stop calling." "Emily," I said. "You don't call someone 3 times unless you're scared of something." She was quiet. "I just don't want to be the reason things blow up," she said. The call ended shortly after that. I sat there, phone in my hand, realizing something I hadn't admitted yet. This wasn't about finding proof anymore. It was about time. Every day I waited, something shifted. Not in Lauren. In me. And whatever was coming next, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stay in this space forever. By the weekend, I knew I couldn't keep doing this. Watching. Waiting. Pretending everything was fine. It wasn't about patience anymore. It was about erosion. We were eating dinner on Saturday night. Nothing special. Pasta. A bottle of wine we'd already opened earlier in the week. Lauren looked relaxed. Comfortable. That made the words harder to say. "I need to ask you something," I said. She looked up from her plate. "Okay," she said. "Come. Open." I didn't accuse her. I didn't mention Savannah. I didn't mention Emily. I asked the one question that had been sitting in my chest for days. "Is there anything going on in your life right now that only works if I don't know about it?" She didn't answer right away. That pause wasn't dramatic. But it wasn't empty either. She set her fork down carefully. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I mean exactly what I said," I replied. "I'm not asking if you did something wrong. I'm asking if there's something you're managing. Something you're keeping contained." She leaned back in her chair. "I don't like how that sounds," she said. "I don't like how it feels," I said. That was the first crack in the conversation. Lauren sighed. "Daniel, nothing is happening," she said. "If that's what you're worried about." I noticed she answered a question I hadn't asked. "I didn't say something was happening," I replied. "I said something might be hidden." She looked at me more carefully now. "Did someone say something to you?" she asked. That question told me everything. She wasn't confused. She was checking the perimeter. "No," I said. "This is coming from me." That was partly true. Lauren nodded slowly, like she was deciding how much energy this deserved. "I've been thinking about making some changes," she said. "About work. About what I want next." "Changes that affect us?" I asked. "Eventually," she said. "Yes." I waited. She didn't continue. "So why not tell me?" I asked. She frowned. "Because I wasn't ready," she said. "Because I didn't want opinions before I had clarity." I believed that. Or at least, I believed she believed it. But it didn't explain everything. "What about Savannah?" I asked. She stiffened. "Just a little." "What about it? Was it just a break?" I asked. "Or was it something else?" She stared at me for a long second. "It was a break," she said. "From routine. From expectations." "Mine included?" I asked. She didn't answer that. That silence felt different than the others. Not uncertainty. Calculation. I'm not cheating on you, she said suddenly. I didn't respond. Because again she was answering something I hadn't said. I need you to trust me, she added. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Trust isn't something you request when it's intact. You request it when it's under negotiation. I want to, I said. But I need to understand what I'm trusting. Lauren's tone changed. Sharper. Defensive. I feel like I'm on trial, she said. I feel like I'm outside my own marriage, I replied. That landed. She stood up and started clearing the table. Movement instead of conversation. We're fine, Daniel, she said. You're making this bigger than it is. Maybe she was right. But I noticed something then. She hadn't denied managing information. She had just reframed it as protection. That night, we went to bed without resolving anything. She fell asleep quickly. I didn't. I realized something uncomfortable. Even if Lauren wasn't lying, she was deciding what version of reality I got access to. And whether that was about fear, control, or timing didn't matter anymore. Because the result was the same. I was no longer part of the decision-making. I wasn't ready to say what that meant yet. But I knew this much. If I stayed quiet now, I'd be agreeing to a role I never chose. And that wasn't something I could undo later. Sunday came quietly. No tension in the air. No dramatic signs. Lauren made coffee like she always did. Dark roast. 2 sugars for me. 1 for herself. That almost broke me. We sat on opposite sides of the kitchen island, the morning light sliding across the floor like nothing in our life was about to change. I realized something then. If I confronted her now, it wouldn't be about catching her. It would be about deciding who I was willing to become next. Lauren checked her phone and frowned. Reception's terrible today, she said. That was the opening. I didn't plan it. I didn't rehearse anything. I just said it. I spoke to Emily again. She froze. Not completely. Just enough. Her hand stayed on the mug. Her eyes didn't meet mine. When? She asked. This morning, I said. That was a lie. But it wasn't the kind that mattered. Lauren exhaled slowly. What did she say? She asked. She told me something I already knew, I replied. But she also told me something I didn't. Lauren finally looked at me. Really looked. What are you doing right now? She asked. I'm giving you a chance, I said. Not to explain. To choose. Her jaw tightened. Choose what? Whether we're going to keep talking like this is about misunderstandings, I said. Or whether we're going to talk like 2 adults who know the truth is already in the room. The silence stretched. Lauren stood up and walked to the window. For a second I thought she might deny it again. She didn't. It wasn't supposed to matter, she said quietly. There it was. Not an apology. Not a confession. A justification. I didn't plan it, she continued. I didn't wake up one day and decide to blow up our marriage. I didn't wake up one day and decide to stop trusting you, I said. She turned around. It started before Savannah, she admitted. Months before. That trip just made it harder to pretend it wasn't happening. I nodded. Emily had told me that part. But then Lauren said something Emily hadn't. I didn't tell you because I didn't know if I wanted to leave, she said. And I didn't want to hurt you unless I was sure. That sentence landed heavier than anything else. Because suddenly this wasn't about cheating. It was about control. You were deciding my reality, I said, while asking me to stay loyal inside it. That's not fair, she said. It's accurate, I replied. Lauren's voice broke. I was scared, she said. I didn't want to lose everything. I stood up. That's the problem, I said. You didn't want to lose everything. You just didn't mind losing me in pieces. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. That movement was small. But it changed the room. I'm not asking you to leave, she said quickly. We can slow this down. We can go to counseling. We can. I know, I said. And maybe we still will. She looked up, hope flickering again. But here's what's different now, I continued. I'm done protecting silence. Her expression shifted. What does that mean? She asked. It means I won't pretend I don't feel this, I said. I won't carry your secrets so you can decide later what version of the truth I deserve. She shook her head. So you're leaving? I paused. No, I said. I'm stopping. She didn't understand at first. I'm stopping the waiting, I explained. Stopping the pretending. Stopping the version of me who stays quiet just to keep the peace. The room felt still. Not broken. Clear. I don't know what happens next, I said. But I know this. I looked at her. My life doesn't work if my voice disappears inside it. Lauren sat down slowly. For the first time all weekend she looked uncertain. Not defensive. Not strategic. Just unsure. That was my point X. Not the affair. Not the confession. The moment I chose not to disappear anymore. Some endings don't come with slammed doors. Some arrive quietly. And change the direction of everything. I stood there and finally let it land. I wouldn't disappear inside my own life anymore. She could keep her secrets, but I wouldn't carry them. For the first time in months, the room felt like mine again, and I was done waiting. If this story stayed with you, I'd like to know what you heard in it. Not advice, just your take.